Welcome back. Let's move away from that to some of the conversation that has to do with the oil and gas sector. And there are proposals to amend the PIA, that's the Petroleum Industry Act, that regulates the activities of the oil and gas sector. But that seems to be causing some challenges and is going to produce some results as well. So for context, there are proposals to amend certain sections of the Petroleum Industry Act, where, for instance, the NUPRC maybe dovetailing from just being regulator to elements around commercialization, or the commercial elements of their work, and also the midstream, downstream gas infrastructure fund is also in the works as far as that is concerned, where the NMDPRA boss will probably be having a supervisory role over the executive director of the gas infrastructure fund. So all of these challenges, on one hand, is about blocking leakages, fiscal prudence and performance, but there are also governance challenges. So we're going to break all of this down for context. But let's bring in our guest who understands these things better. Mabuye Obu is the oil and gas sector analyst and the Niger Delta activist. Mr. Obu, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you. Good morning.
I guess you have seen the PIA, some of the sections that will be touched as far as this regulation, the sector is concerned. But what's your general overview for context so that the audience will be able to understand what we're talking about here?
Okay, so very simply, I would say, without no offense to the Nigerian Senate or the National Assembly, but it's somehow very offensive when people concern themselves with things that are not important to the Niger Delta people. First of all, in 2021, when this unfortunate PIA was given, unfortunate, I'm selecting my words.
You will explain what it means.
I'll tell you, and there's a whole lot of protests here and there, even in the Niger Delta. There are areas where we had expected the National Assembly to concern itself with, which is the area of, the allocation to those communities, because for us, that's what's more important to us. Why do I say that? Nigeria is a hub for greenhouse gas emission. And the hub for greenhouse gas emission in Nigeria is the Niger Delta. The year 2023 was the hottest year in the world due to emissions. Nigeria is signatory to, any type of UN zero emissions here and there, even at the level of COP28 in Dubai. To the glory of God, I was also part of it. I attended, and our dear president came with the largest retinue of persons to attend, and Nigeria is only there asking for what they call reparation. Reparation is you can emit, kill the people in the Niger Delta, but just give us some money. You understand? That's what it means. I'm just putting it in the the local way, but that's by the way. Now, in its magnanimity, the PIA bill also, looked at what they call the midstream downstream gas infrastructure funds, which is the MDIF, right? They came up with a governance tool, which they call the NMDPRA, which is the Nigerian Midstream Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Act. Listen, it's like NAFDAC and MZO. Today, NAFDAC is telling us that they are regulators of our medicines, our tablets, or whatever, the health, and that today, this current PIA Section 52 that gave the act to MDIF and NMDPRA, Section 52 is part of what the arrangements of they are going to amend about 14 sections or so or thereabouts, right? But we're concerned today now with the Section 52 that gave the act that established the MDGIF, that's the Midstream Downstream Gas Infrastructure Funds, and the governance tool or authority, which is NMDPRA. Now, I'm using NAFDAC and let's say EMSA or SWIFA, whatever you call it. NAFDAC is to tell you that, please, whenever you do this, this is standards for you to produce these drugs. By this current arrangement, if it's allowed to scale through, right, you're telling us that NAFDAC is now a shareholder in EMSO for about 30% or so. So you are now regulating, and also, so there's conflict of interest. You cannot be a judge of your own case. What do I mean? The section they are trying to also amend in the Section 52 is to give more powers to the NMDPRA. Now, you mentioned it in your opening that we have gas infrastructure. When people talk about gas infrastructure, it's something that concerns you and I, not just the Niger Delta. Yes, I am from the Niger Delta, and I understand how this thing works. But trust me, you may not like what I want to say, but it's not offensive. As a young man living in the Niger Delta, staying under the flare, Nigeria is signatory to gas flaring laws or whatever. It affects our testosterone. This is fact, please. We live in a world where it's tech savvy. You can just check all this out. Our lives are endangered. In Port Harcourt, where I live in particular, we have what they call particulate matter, which in local parlance they call black soot. That has not been addressed. It's also effluent from oil and gas. A whole lot of things are happening. And so the Nigerian government, I praised President Bola Ahmed Tinubu first for, in the first quarter of this year. I've always been critical on the president, but on this, I doff my hat for him. Why? He approved that FAC should remit about 256.5 billion naira to the MDGIF. MDGIF gets 0.5% from gas sales in Nigeria. That's huge. NMDPRA is regulatory, so he's seeing a whole lot of money, and he's probably the big man, so he's approaching the National Assembly, maybe, to give him more power. No, it's not an allegation, but if we allow this slide, it's going to affect you and I. We want green energy, green gas, green everything in the world. But
under the current structure, independent of the amendment that is being proposed, has the NMDPRA led, an ideal environment in terms of ease of doing business and all the other bureaucratic bottlenecks that would impede investment? Has the NMDPRA given an ideal environment for gas investments?
God bless you. You just answered the question. So listen. MDGIF cannot function if NMDPRA used NAFDAC and EMZO to say if EMZO wants to produce something that would kill mosquitoes, like permanent cure for malaria that we have, that's predominant here, for example. And NAFDAC is saying, don't do it because we still want you to, let's be treating it, let's not eliminate it. That's what is going on. It's governance, because they have the power to say don't or do, or that don't bring this into the market. Now, NMDPRA, have they done the right things? No. This is the truth. They haven't. Now, the point is, I don't even know who heads the MDGIF, right? But the point, I am interested because it's going to affect me, it's going to empower me, it's going to empower my people. Because when you look at the streams, the PIA itself, that I say is an unfortunate, governance law that Nigeria is celebrating, nothing to celebrate. 3% is a far cry of what I go through as a person. I am not here to tell you that we have all the oil and nothing is happening. Just a week ago, I was at a place called Cotton Channel, where a particular company is stealing our crude through what they call badging. And what badging is alien to petroleum engineering. You just say, what does it mean? This is a wellhead. Instead of you to put the trunk lines that will push it into the flow station and you get it in a real way through a LACT unit that you can measure that. LACT unit is a metering system that you say, okay, this is this. We have produced 10,000 barrels. You now bring it to the flow station, bring a badge, and you just, like hose, like water, you put it there and they freight it to an export terminal. And the streams, this particular process, none of the Niger Deltans or the community members are involved in this. They were shipped from our Obodo Lagos and Obodo Abuja. Sorry, but this is just what it is, but that's not what I'm here for. So I'm on ground and I understand what is going on. I will protect what will protect my people and what will empower me as a young person, and also the people, and even yourself. You need good, clean gas. You understand? Let me just use an instance. This is not to praise any government. I won't mention the name of the government. When we had a former, embattled petroleum minister that we had that is in London today, they did what they call, I've forgotten the name, but kerosene to every community or every home, where it was like law that you go to the fueling station, you could buy kerosene, and they will give you a ton price into your jerry can. You understand? For 50 naira per liter. I'm not saying they should make it 50 naira now. We can, if the gas infrastructure, this MDGIF, is allowed to function properly, we could begin to have gas. We've gone to all of these countries that things work. Some people just have pipes connected to them, and you pay a token. You understand? And you get gas. I don't need to lift cylinders here and there. So please, I don't want to take the show, but the point is, this Governance Act, this PIA amendment, the National Assembly should concern itself with bottlenecking the MDPRA and the MDGIF. Allow the midstream, downstream petroleum gas infrastructure to function and give us more, compensation. We need 5% or 10%. That's what they should be talking about, not telling us.
Just to be clear.
Please go ahead.
The voluminous PIA.
Thank you.
Right,
I like that.
Which you have, I'm sure you've gone through. The only issues you have, for which you described as unfortunate, that was the term you used. That's
the entire PIA itself, is unfortunate.
You said unfortunate, right?
Yes.
Just to be clear, so we properly contextualize this. You have issues with what the host communities get
Very well.
That's one.
Very well.
What's the second issue you have with it?
The entire PIA gamut itself.
Not the gamut. What specific issues do you have with it? Aside the
for now, the reason I'm bringing that, you know that it's about 200 and something pages. Yes. So I can't sit here, even if I'm a stenographer or whatever you call it, right, to sit here and tell you page by page.
I just wanted to isolate the issues.
No, yeah, for the purpose of this conversation and with the current, so-called amendment that is, making our senators and National Assembly members, have a field day in Abuja, I am saying they should concern themselves with what will empower the people that bears the brunt.
Okay, so
you understand? And that thing, primarily, they should give us more, instead of going to unbundle or, dismember certain things that is already, the MDGIF, even to my mind, needs more powers to function.
Okay.
You understand? Than now going to concern yourself with that. No.
All right, so
rather give us more.
Two issues you have with the PIA.
Please.
So we understand what the host communities get and the MDGIF, the provision.
Yeah, the provision.
That says
the NMDPROA they are giving too much powers to the NMDPROA.
But as it is right now, the MDGIF has the power.
They have the power, but it's just like you and I. You called me to come to your station to speak, right? You could just yank me off right now. So that's the
we will in a few minutes.
Yeah. But that's the truth.
But in the nicest way.
No, I understand. But that's what is going on, because you have the knife and you have the carrot, the stick and the carrot.
So for us,
you're giving the stick and you're hitting the guy.
Right. For us, our segments are, we have time slots for our segment. But that's by the way. Let's come back to the oil and gas.
No, I just want to ease the tension here.
We want to be able to tie this conversation to Nigerians. Because the picture you're painting is having better infrastructure, gas infrastructure, so that people are able to have access to gas at affordable rates. There's a proper gas infrastructure. How will the proposed provision now that gives NMDPRA the authority, or that proposes to give it the authority, how would it affect that? Would it affect it negatively or positively? Because some will say more oversight is good. Let all hands be on deck so we're able to monitor what's going on.
With the current oversight, if this is allowed to go, there's a lot of bottlenecks where when you bring something, when this guy wants to do anything, he must get concurrence on, not just from the NDPROA, but the NDPROA is by the PIA law.
So more bureaucracy.
Too much bureaucracy. The Ministry of Environment, what's it called? Petroleum Resources is there. The minister, the presidency, these are part of the governance, structure of the MDGIF.
But pardon me, but under this watch, the government has signed agreements with 10 companies for gas infrastructure.
I wanted to
There's
that.
The other one, the construction of KKK gas, I believe, by Olisev. So when you say that, the MDGIF is not being given the room to work, but there are investments in gas that are ongoing.
Okay, so when this thing started, the PIA did not start from this administration. It started in the last administration, right? And when something is your baby, you want to nurture it, right? Secondly, the AKK, Ajakuta Kaduna Kano gas pipeline, came to fruition because the president, as at that time, made it look like it should work. Let me give you a similar example. That's what they call PAGMI, Presidential Artisanal Gold Mining Initiative. The Ministry of Petroleum Resources, it has a governance token, I call it token, or governance tool, managing that, and there's a funds from the Ministry of Environment that funds gold mining in the north. This thing happened overnight. Sorry, I'm not here to criticize anybody, but because it is, it is there to the president as at that time, so he made it work. Currently, this administration is trying to now restrict the options and giving, there's no breather for the MDGIF. And I am interested that instead, that concerns me. I'm not concerned with the NMDPROA because it's doing nothing to me and my people. But the MDGIF, I can set up a CNG.
Is that fair to say, though, that it's not doing anything?
It's not, because directly I don't get anything. Yeah, it may not be exactly that, but when I give you so much powers, you decide. I don't want to go into politics, right? A lot is happening where somebody is like equal to God and equal to, you think you're assistant God or whatever, and that's what they're trying to do. Concern yourself with what, because at the end of the day, Nigeria is saying, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is saying there's decade to gas transformation plan. It is the MDGIF that can give us that, the decade to gas.
So you feel that, I'd like you to continue with the example you gave, because now the amendments to section 52, subsection 5B, it's usually that the executive director will take care of administration and management and all of those things. But now there's a clause added to it. Supervision, under the supervision of the chief something authority, that's the boss of the NMDPRA, is how will this affect investment opportunity?
Now, you should know that this is Nigeria, and anything that has to do with Nigeria, you know, there's people who want to second guess it first. You know, there's corruption attached to it. There's a whole lot. Investors, there will be investors' apathy, because when there's always change of laws or collapse of certain acts or amendments, tomorrow you can't plan for 10 years in Nigeria with Naira devaluation and a whole lot. Let me give you a very simple example. Last 2023, 2 years ago, under the last administration, the NNPC decided to play the role of CBN by going to borrow $3 billion from Afreximbank. And they said payable with crude. Now, the NNPC cannot produce more than 400,000 barrels of oil per day. Cannot. The only stream of NNPC that can produce, that is saddled with the responsibility of producing oil, is what we call the MPDC, today NEPL, in Benin. The assets under it, and maybe just few part of NAPIMS. The rest is coming from the IOCs and other companies. Can you go into business with Shell's portion of, of crude, and say you're signing? So how many years will the NNPC and Afreximbank deplete the environment in the Niger Delta, our reservoirs, the environment, to get back $3 billion? At what amount was crude as at that time when they signed the deal? You would ask. So it might take years, it might take months. So does it mean that NNPC will not produce every month, if it's 5 months, that NNPC is having 0 Naira? And the reason they gave was that they were using that to show up the Naira and Naira devaluation. So going into, I don't want to use the word useless, things that are not important to me. That's why I said the NMDPRA is not answering my question. But what can answer my question is the MDGIF, because I am concerned. I am a local. I live there as a villager, living in my community. I live in my community today. And there's oil, there's flare there. So maybe that's why I don't have so much children or too many children, because of the testosterone issue. I told you can Google it. So why? We need governance on board. So it's affecting us. Allow these people to function. Don't give too much power to them.
What we're to take out from the conversation is the crux of the matter is that rather than overseeing and oversighting NNDPR oversighting, being in the system, in the
and having share stake and all of that,
being part of the commercial decision, it should just stay as a regulator.
Stay as a regulator,
so that the system will work freely.
You cannot be a judge of your own case.
Okay, I know that issue has also been raised with the NUPRC when it comes to the NMPCL as well, in terms of regulator, referee and player situation. But it's a conversation we'll keep exploring.
Of course.
But your last take, going forward, 10 seconds.
On the issue,
yes,
allow the National Assembly, thanking them for, thinking that the petroleum, sector needs change and all that. But please, those of us that are really badly affected by the petroleum activities, the greenhouse gas zone, the Niger Delta, they should consider us, more especially the host community. Instead of going to amend Section 52, please, National Assembly should look into amending the section that empowers us, increase our quota to even 10% or 15%.
Okay, of course, this conversation is an ongoing conversation. We hope we can get, because it's hard sometimes to get either NUPRC, NMDPRA to come and we're totally out of time. Okay. I must apologize.
No worries, that's
it's
fine.
An ongoing conversation,
of course.
Oil and gas sector is our cash cow, and anything that happens to it affects all of us. So we hope we can get the other side, because there is reasoning in the amendment. Let's also hear that reasoning. But of course, there's agitation from persons like you. Maboye Obu is the oil and gas sector analyst and a very ardent Niger Delta activist. Thank you.
Okay, don't worry.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, well, let's taper down a bit to the soft side of things. You want to find out what it is? Find out in just a moment. We'll be right back.